Live from Alachua, Florida, I'm Amrita Kaylee.
And I'm Namamrita. Welcome to Nectar Talks, from the heart of New Ramanreti, the largest Hare Krishna community in North America and the home of thousands of Bhakti Yoga practitioners.
In our ongoing interviews, we dig deep into our search for loving connections with Krishna and each other.
With you, we hope to uncover the real-life stories and inner journeys of our vibrant community of friends and special guests.
Like bees searching for nectar, we seek to extract pearls of wisdom from how they live their lives and the lessons they can impart to us and our listeners.
If you're seeking nectar, look no further.
All right, let's get started.
Hello, dear friends. I'm Namamrita, and welcome to another installment of Nectar Talks. If you want to get to know New Ramanreti, this is the podcast for you, where you can discover the diverse backgrounds of our community members, what drew them to come live here in Alachua, and what unique insights they have to share about their Krishna consciousness and the practice of bhakti. Before we get started, a quick reminder that our audio archive can be found on Apple Podcast and Spotify under the name Nectar Talks. And look for us on Facebook and YouTube for the entertaining video versions of our episodes where you'll see cool images and footage associated with our guests, courtesy of our dear Madhurya Leela, who spends a lot of time putting all that together for you. All right, let's begin. Our guest today is Param BritoGoodloe. She arrived at New Ramanreti from California with her husband Scotty and her daughter Shivani. She works as a nurse here at a hospital in Gainesville, and she was born in the movement and also lived in India for a period of time. And at the ripe age of 34 years old, her life journey has already been full of interesting and sometimes challenging milestones, which I'm really excited to learn about. Welcome, Param. It's really a pleasure to have you with us this evening. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your background, perhaps to get started. Where did you grow up? Where did it all begin?
So I was born in Brazil. My mom is Rita Maharaj's disciple, and my father is Japadak Maharaj's disciple.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is Brazilian and my dad is Ecuadorian. I was born in Brazil, but I never really lived there. I grew up a lot in Ecuador, and my dad was a temple president there. So we traveled a lot within South America. So I lived in Colombia, I lived in Panama, I lived in just pretty much everywhere that my dad was called, because he was Japadak Maharaj's personal servant for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So he would have him, go to different places. And my mom was Japadak Maharaj's personal cook, so we travel a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where my spiritual journey began. My mom was the top Sankirtan seller in Brazil, and my dad also did Sankirtan, so they're very
I like how you call it seller. Right away I get your perspective on that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was raised in the movement, and then when I was 6, we came to Miami. We stayed there for a little bit, and then we went to San Diego, where my dad and my mom did temple service for a long time. My dad was a head pujari there.
Great, awesome. So you went from Brazil to Miami to San Diego, and where did you go to school for those early years? Was it Gurukul or was it a public school?
So I never technically went to Gurukul. I mean, we had like a French teacher in Ecuador, I remember. But most of my education came from, I went to Catholic school in Ecuador because usually that's like the best education you can get, private schooling.
Uh-huh.
And then in San Diego, I went to regular school, public school. And then when I was in India, I did homeschooling.
Okay, when did you move to India?
When I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did your initial schooling in San Diego,
Yep.
well, Brazil, San Diego, and then in India. Now in India, was that part of the the public school system, or?
Yeah, so it's like American high school. It's like a pretty like common, like I think every guru kuli has pretty much done, the homeschooling through there. It's, it's pretty self-discipline. You do the work and then you take tests and then you get your high school diploma.
Mm. And how long were you in India for?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what came after that?
And then I moved back to San Diego, and I just was working. And then at 19, I had my daughter.
And that was in San Diego. And then
Yes.
I know that you moved to Alachua and the New Raman Reiti community from there.
Yes.
When was that?
So we moved, me, my husband, my mom, and my daughter moved here about 4 years ago. It'll be actually
Okay.
4 years ago this weekend.
Okay, great. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
super glad to have you. I know you and my wife are good friends, and
Yeah.
it's always been a joy to have you with
Thank
us.
you.
Tell us a little bit about your career. Just kind of like to brush over that, at least in the beginning. I'd love to hear a little bit about those details.
Yeah, so I work at Comprehensive Women's Health here in Gainesville. A lot of our community, they actually come to my office. So I see a lot of our community members there. Yeah, so I've been in the health field for 13 years. I've worked in a lot of different specialties. I've never worked in OBGYN, which is what I'm working in right now. But previous to that, right when we moved here from California here to Florida, I was the office manager for the Department of Pediatrics at UF. I really missed the patient interaction, so I chose to go back to like more personal relationships with my patients.
Okay, great. And you learned, now is that a nursing degree?
Yeah, so I did that in San Diego.
That was
right
in San
after,
Diego.
a couple, I think like I want to say like 21. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what specifically would you say brought you to Alachua? You had friends here, or?
Yeah, so everybody knows about Alachua. So I really wanted Shivani the community in San Diego, the devotee community it's great, it's home, but it's very small. And I wanted a more community devotee sense for Shivani, my daughter. We left right when she finished elementary school, so I figured it'd be a good transition for her between elementary school into transitioning into middle school, for her to have that new experiences and be with people that are like her, because at our school it was, there was no devotees there. So
Gotcha.
that'd be a good idea for her, myself, my mom, and my husband, to be in a community where it's, there's more people that think like you. And also in San Diego, it's a big city, so it's the rat race, so.
Yeah. I get it. So sometimes devotees say that, for those who are born in the movement, they may not have per se joined, but they'll often describe, and, including myself, a lot of devotees who are born in the movement, we kind of go through our life experiences, and in a way we do join by our own convictions. Have you had an experience like that? Maybe you tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, for sure.
What is Krishna consciousness for you in your life?
Yeah, I've always thought as Krishna consciousness and being a devotee more like, I know this is gonna sound weird, but kind of how like Jewish people are, just as like their heritage is of who they are.
Right.
So that's kind of how I've always felt about my Krishna consciousness, and I've always felt like it was a part of who I am. So it's never been something that I felt like I had to choose. Of course, I've had my struggles, like anybody in any religion, whether you're born into it or you choose to be into it. But I feel like I've had so many experiences in my life where have time and time again, Krishna has, kind of shown up for me. And I feel like that to me is the most important part of being quote unquote devotee. And that's not just in ISKCON, but in any religious background.
Right. Awesome. So looking back, I know you mentioned you had your daughter at 19 years old, and Were you with her father, or did you kind of had that single mom experience?
So I was with her father, but it didn't work out. And so I did have a single mom experience.
Mhm.
Um, uh, as for any parent, it was very hard for my parents. However, the San Diego devotee community was so supportive and have always been so supportive. Um, the GBC, he's been like a father figure to me for so long, and he was just so supportive, and everybody was so supportive. So it just turned into like, it takes a village to raise a family, to raise a child, and that's kind of the community that I grew up in San Diego. So I was very fortunate to have the ability to take care of my daughter and go back to school, and and be able to thrive and not just kind of become a statistic.
Right, right.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Um, what would you say are some of the other big milestones that might have um, informed your life decisions in relation to Krishna consciousness? I'm sure how you've raised your daughter, that's
Yeah,
probably included in there.
for sure. So like I said, when, it was really hard for me to be 19, and I'm wed, and I feel like when you are, they say like, when you feel like you can't walk, God carries you. So I feel like a lot of my, um, I guess would say like lowest of the lows have really kind of, I've had support with Krishna and the community, where they have been there for me and kind of shown up for me there. And I think before I even had Shivani, like in India, just having so many amazing experiences with people and places that, most people, every time I tell people like, yeah, I've been to, India, and I've been to South America, and I've been to Europe, people are like, are your parents military? And I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm just from I'm a Hare Krishna, and so
Right.
I feel like it's just, it's more of a, not experiences like per se, like break it down to one experience. I think it's been like an overall experience, and the paths and the connection that I've made, with the people in the community and with Krishna, that have just brought me to be who I am
Mhm.
and where I've been. And so I think that that's really something that I want to say is a tribute to my spirituality.
Right. What's people's reactions when you say you're a Hare Krishna, and do you say that with like I grew up in France and Europe,
Mhm.
and there was a big thing, when I was a kid with cults and all that,
Yeah,
and I've carried this kind of embarrassment and fear of even though it's so much better in the U.S., but
yeah,
of sharing,
of course.
I'm a Hare Krishna because
It's weird.
for yeah, for a lot of people it's still weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's your experience when you tell people, and what are your inner feelings when you share that?
So I think that the reason why, I mean, of course it's weird because it's different. So anything that's different is weird,
Right.
especially when you're a child. I think what's really amazing is that in San Diego, the community there it's a lot different than I think most people have grew up in ISKCON, I want to say, because it's so family oriented, and it was more like, again, who I was. It wasn't like something that defined me as my religion. It was
Right.
who I was as a person. So, and of course, you're a vegetarian, and I never really got made fun of for being a vegetarian. I know a couple of my other Gurukuli friends, they did, but it was never like, they would joke and be like, oh, like, what do you eat? And I'm like, just what you do, but without meat. So
Right.
it was never a big deal. And I mean, I tell people, and like the first reaction is like, oh, the people that shave their heads, like, why don't you shave your head? And then it goes into like, no, because I'm not a guy, I'm not a
Right.
brahmachari. So
Right.
I think I mean, I've, I'm an open book, and I don't think I've ever really been ashamed of being a devotee, or like thought it was, I mean, I'm sure it's weird, but I never really thought it was weird to tell people that I was a devotee. I think the being vegetarian thing is more weird to them.
Yeah. Yeah. What about that's when you were in school or younger? What's your experience nowadays as
Yeah.
a grown woman and in a professional career environment?
Yeah. So growing up in school, I always smell like incense because, you know, our houses always have incense burning. So my friends would always be like, "Oh my God, you smell so good." And we would always have like, you know, the deities and in our house and things like that. And I would always bring my friends to the temple for big festivals. And maybe because, you know, we lived in California, people are super open-minded to it, you know. Um, so it's honestly, it's always been, people ask a lot of questions, obviously, but it's always been like a really like kind of curious, like that's really cool kind of thing, you know, from my friends and everything like that. And I mean, everybody, you know, everybody's been, I can honestly say I've never been judged for being a Hare Krishna,
Right,
which is
right.
amazing. And a lot of people can't say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And even with my job, you know, like, you know, I've worked with Indian doctors, so many Indian doctors. So it's like, it's nice to have that connection, you know, where, you know, you kind of know a little bit. So you kind of feel familiar when you have someone that kind of has like an Indian background, you know. So
Yeah.
that's nice. Yeah.
I remember, I grew up like almost stalking Indian people because I was like, oh, they know Krishna. I'll see an Indian in an airport or
Yeah.
wherever, and I get all excited. And then I marry my wife who's from India, and she's like, you need
No.
to calm down. Not everybody is a straight up devotee like you think they are.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I always appreciated that they do know
Yeah,
about Krishna.
for sure.
So tell us a little bit about your roles in your career. What do you do
Sure.
exactly? I understand your women's health and
Yeah.
OBGYN.
Yep.
What are some other things that you
So
do there?
I work directly with all the doctors. Sometimes we do inpatient care where it's like I'm seeing the patients, I'm rooming them, I'm getting them ready for surgery, I'm getting them ready for procedures that they're having with the doctors. And sometimes I do triage, which is phone triage. So when they call in, there's an emergency, I have to assess the situation to see whether they need to go to the hospital or they need to come in. So that's something that I do on a day-to-day basis. Really what I like to focus is advocacy for my patients. Um, the statistics in the medical world, especially for women, are very sad. And so I like to advocate for my patients so that they, because in healthcare, you have to advocate for yourself, because,
In what sense do you say that they're
well,
sad?
it's because,
Like they don't get enough?
they don't get enough, they don't have enough care. And, especially women of color, like, 1 out of 3 deliveries, a woman of color dies. That's
Wow.
crazy,
Wow.
and it's like because they are not heard, or when they're in pain, they're not given pain medication. So I really like to advocate to the patients that don't speak English, because we have a large population of patients that don't speak English. And I, fortunately, speak Spanish and Portuguese. So I'm able to help the patients out, or the very young mothers that, don't feel like they can take care of themselves or say something, so that's something that I really thrive and I really enjoy doing, is advocacy in my job.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for bringing that awareness. I
Yeah.
did not know those
Yeah.
statistics. So how much personal time do you get to spend with patients? You said you kind of get them set up in the beginning, but do you get to
Yeah.
kind of like really care for them over
Yes.
a long period of
Yeah.
time and get to
So,
know them? And
of course. So with the patients, with OBGYN care, we do a lot of pregnancy patients. So I see the patients from the minute they have, they realize they're pregnant till they give birth. So I spend a lot of time with them. I really encourage them to really find out who they are as a person, and kind of what they want their journey to be. I being a young single mom, my pregnancy was, physically and health wise, it was great, but it was a lot of emotional toll,
Right.
and there's a lot of women here that, suffer, whether it's because of abusive relationships or because they don't know what they're doing. And my thing is to just educate them, and to let them know that they have someone at our office. Everybody in my office is incredibly kind and incredibly loving, but it's also nice to have someone that looks like you. It's nice to have someone that comes from your background and knows your struggles, that makes it. We all want to thrive as humans, and we thrive off interactions. And I think that it's really important to have those close interactions with people, to let them know that you're heard and you're seen.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's great that you've had your personal life experience and that you
Yeah,
can relate with some of the young women that come.
of course. Yeah,
Um, would you say that your background in Krishna consciousness has been useful in your
of
career,
course,
your
of
interaction?
course.
What are
Yes,
some examples of
I
how that
think
might come into play?
I think that just honestly, just being kind, and because you're different, like, being a devotee is different. It's a different thing. You're always out of your element, you're always moving, you always have to meet new people and stuff. And I just think that just shows you such compassion for other people.
Mm,
It shows you how to understand that people come from different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, we're all the same, as a spirit soul, and I think that really helps to kind of see past the physical body, because, we're human. So the first thing that we go off is, what we see by sight. But having that knowledge that, there's more to the person, that there's a soul in there, that really helps me carry through
mm,
with situations like, where I don't have a connection with this person, but I know that deep down inside we're the same. So I feel like Krishna consciousness has really helped me that as far as in my career, wanting to be compassionate, having the understanding of people and their situations and their karma, you
mm,
know, and just having that compassion and wanting to help people.
mm. Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, what are your do you have any future goals or aspirations as a
Yeah,
in
I
your
definitely, I really want to, like I said, my main thing right now at work is just being advocating for um, people that don't have a voice. So I want to go back to school, and I don't know if, like, I mean, I'm not going to go back to school to be a lawyer or anything like that, but I really want to, um, immerse myself in advocacy for people that don't have a voice. I think it's so important, even as devotees, to just speak up when we don't see something that's right.
Mhm,
Um, and so I think that that's really something that I really, as far as aspirations, I really want to move forward with that and just being an advocate for people that need that. So
mhm.
that's definitely something, my goal, moving forward in my life. Yeah.
Are there any kind of like ISKCON related projects that you see yourself contributing to with your experience as a nurse?
I
Because I
will.
know, like here in New Ramanreti, we
Yeah.
have such a population of senior devotees, and
Yeah,
I've
definitely.
heard a lot of talks about wanting to put together a
Yeah, a coalition, I think,
end
for,
of
yeah,
life
yeah,
home and
definitely.
all that. And
I think that that'd be really incredible. When I lived in India, my mom worked with the Food for Life, and there was a devotee there that she would bring um, a lot of education, female education, to a lot of the women, the villagers around, that. And I think that, I mean, ultimately, when Shivani goes to college, and I've talked to Sundari about this so many times, like, I would love to go, like, to India and work at, Rinana Maharaj's hospital in Bombay, and just really dive myself into, helping people at the highest capacity, you know, and just really,
which hospital is that? You're talking
the
about
one in Bombay.
Bhaktivedanta Hospital,
Yes,
or because you
yes.
said Hridayananda Maharaj,
I'm
that
sorry,
Radha
Radha
Swami.
Swami, sorry, Radha
Gotcha.
Swami.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Bhaktivedanta Hospital.
So that's something that I definitely would love to do, and just really immerse myself in helping people and doing service that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I feel such an enthusiasm and just like so much punch and ability in you. So I really wish that you do get to
Yeah,
pursue all your dreams
for sure.
and the care of others like that. It's really
Yeah.
awesome. Um, well, maybe we can. I would love to hear a little bit more about your husband,
Sure.
Scotty.
Yeah.
Um, I know that first of all, and I know he's with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Scotty, if you're there, you're welcome to jump in. I would love to hear about how you guys met, and I know Scotty's a really cool guy. We've met a couple of times.
Yeah. He's coming on the iPad. He's gonna come on right now.
Uh,
Yeah.
as another participant.
I believe so.
Okay, all right, I'll keep an eye out for that. But yeah, in the meantime, maybe you can tell us how you two met.
So we met in San Diego through mutual friends. Scotty was he played college football in Utah, So, and it's funny because he always says, like, he's like, I remember I would see this really big temple in Spain, in Spanish Fork.
Spanish Fork, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
yeah, so that's kind of, so yeah, we've been together for 10 years. We've been married for 5. He is the most amazing supportive partner anybody could ask for. So I'm very blessed to have Scotty as my husband. So yeah, he's a great guy. And he lets me be the person that I am, which is really important in a relationship.
Yeah. All right. How's it going, Scotty?
Hey, what's going on?
Nice to have you with us here.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So, I guess let's jump right into. I would love to hear what your initial impressions were. Of course, Param's a beautiful girl. We know that. But what were your initial impressions as far as her spiritual background, and what was your religious background growing up? And were there any initial discussions about all that between the two of you? I'm sure there was.
I didn't know too much about Krishna Consciousness. Like she said earlier, I had seen a temple in southern Utah in Spanish Fork,
Right.
from driving back and forth on holiday and breaks from Utah to California. But I never stopped because I had no reason to, but it was always cool to see it as I drove through.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know enough about it to be like, hey, let me, make a pit stop and go check it out. And so we met, like she said, a decade plus ago. It seems like it's been forever. And I didn't know too much about it. I think I joked with her saying that I watched a documentary about Hare Krishna's, I don't know if it was Netflix or some other program. And I was like, man, there was some crazy stuff going on back then. And she was like, no, it's not like that now. And I'm like, well, I just watched I had just watched the documentary within probably a couple months of meeting her. And so we kind of joked about that. I grew up Southern Baptist, which is a lot different than, Hare Krishna.
And you grew up in California?
Yeah, I was born and raised in San Diego.
Okay.
Lived there a majority of my life. Lived a couple years in Texas because my stepdad was in the military. So we were stationed kind of like right outside San Antonio for about 2 years, and then moved back to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And then, left San Diego to go to college and came back and went to grad school in San Diego. And, now we're here. But yeah, growing up, Southern Baptist, it was always, church on Sundays, grandmother and aunts going to Bible study or choir practice during the middle of the week. And sometimes I had to go and I didn't want to go, that's typical kid stuff. You just want to go and play and be with your friends.
Sure.
And then, as I got older, different experiences in my life, some traumatic things, but just, as you're exposed to more, you want to know more, you want to learn more.
Yeah.
And I kind of started to drift away from the church, so to speak, just because I was struggling with different things personally, and then not being able to find a reason on why I should follow through in, that path. Right. So even now today, I would say I'm a believer, but I'm also I like to play devil's advocate. I question everything. So
sure. That's a very good thing to do.
Yeah, I don't
the healthy practice.
Believe everything I hear or everything somebody tells me.
Right.
And being around a bunch of Hare Krishna people, it has taught me a lot. First of all, some of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met. And I mean that truly. I mean, from not knowing somebody, for a long time, or growing up with them, or knowing their family, they welcome you in with open arms. And, I really appreciate that, especially as we have transitioned from, California to Florida. I didn't know anybody here. Obviously, my wife knew a couple people from the movement, but I knew maybe 1 or 2 people. And then, now I know pretty much, a lot of people, not, very intimately, but if I see them out in the streets or out in the stores, they always speak. So that's been very kind. And to see how everybody kind of just pulls together to help each other out. You don't really see that a lot in California.
Right.
you know, it's just because the lifestyle is different too. It's more fast paced, and it's a lot less people looking out for each other because they're working so hard to stay afloat because the cost of living, because the economy there, as to here, is not as critical as maintaining a certain lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been
Yeah.
some of the differences, but it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah. And now, has the spiritual backgrounds, have they ever been a point of contention between the two of you, or it was always, you know, you totally accepted it and you kind of shared your experiences with spirituality? Or
I think it's always been pretty neutral for me and for him. I am Hispanic, so Catholicism is huge part of my life. I went to Catholic school. He went to Catholic school. My mom went to Catholic school. My dad went to Catholic school. So other religions have always been such a huge part of our lives. I was baptized Catholic, even though I was born a devotee, because my mom always says, you have to make sure, you get into the gates. So I always, and Shivani's baptized, and I would go to church on Sunday with Scotty. And then after that, we'd go to the temple in the evening on Sunday. So it's always been very integrated. I know with relationships that have two different religions, I think it can be really hard, but I think that religion honestly hasn't ever been a big deal for us, as far as like, this is what I want and this is what you want.
Right. However, you moved to Florida.
Yes.
And Scotty came along.
That's the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing.
So tell me, what was that like for you, Scotty, when she said she wanted to move here? And, it was in many ways because of Krishna consciousness and because there's a big community here. How did that play out for you, this idea of moving here for that?
It probably took about 4 years for me to finally decide to, make that leap of faith. For me, it was, I had no network here. So for me, networking is big for me in the field that I work in, and, what I was doing in education. And I just I couldn't get past my mental block of being able to jump that hurdle to start something new and then build back up. And so I put up a lot of resistance. I was like, my family's in San Diego, my career's in San Diego, everything I've known.
Now, what were you doing at the time in San Diego? You're talking about education and all that.
I was working in education. I was a counselor working in mental health. So
okay,
I was dealing with young adolescents, working in high schools in the county district, and just climbing the ranks there. And it was something that was fulfilling for me. It gave me a lot of satisfaction to be able to help the young minds and young families that were struggling with different, disadvantaged circumstances.
Yeah.
And so I was, like I said, I was really against coming here. And then we came to visit maybe in 2015, possibly. We did a trip to Orlando, went down there to Disney, and we came up here, I think, for a couple of days. And I was just like, man, there's nothing up here. I can't see myself here.
Right.
I'm a city boy, so I'm used to,
Sure.
different things going on. And I was telling her, I'm like, I can't do it. There's just not enough going on here. It's a small town, very kind of secluded away from,
Absolutely.
the bigger world, bigger metropolitan areas.
I think everybody that moves here asks themselves that question. As much as they're super excited about the temple, it's like, why am I here in Alachua?
Yeah, and the thing is, I wasn't excited about the temple per se, because we kind of had the best of both worlds, where we were going to my home church and going to the temple, and we would split our Sundays half and half. We'd be at my church and then go to her church, to the temple in the evening. I would help doing garland services and help out any way I can.
Yeah.
So that was,
I mean, really, it's a huge testament to her that you actually did that. What would you say kind of made you be like, okay, I'll do it? Was she just pushing?
I mean, yeah, it was like she pushed me over the edge. Like, no. It was, I think it was after I finished grad school, and I was, already thinking about transitioning to something new in the field I was in. And, she was like, I think this would be a great time. There's all kind of, she kind of buttered me up a little bit, saying that there were all these different things going on here. I had nothing set up when we moved here. So I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have a friend who could, put a word in for me somewhere. It was kind of like I had to figure it out. I had no
Yeah.
problem doing that. I knew I could do that, but it was just like, man, at this age, starting
Right.
all over,
Yeah.
it's,
You're
it's a little
jumping
bit
into
scary.
the unknown. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I really want to share my appreciation for you guys just sharing a little bit about your personal story as a couple, and yeah, I think it's really a beautiful example of a husband being willing to jump pretty far for his loved ones. So I'm going to take notes on that, Scotty. I appreciate the example.
No
Uh,
problem.
Tell us a little bit about what you ended up doing. Are you in the same field that you were in California?
No, I'm not. So actually, when we first moved here, I took a job working as a car salesman at one of the dealerships in Gainesville, and then through that, I got introduced to somebody through a temp agency, and I got a job with the city working as a contracts manager. And I did that for a little over a year, and then got promoted up into working in finance for the city. So now I currently, going on 2 years, have been in finance. I kind of oversee a couple departments as it pertains to city purchasing, City of Gainesville purchasing for a couple different divisions. I'm also in charge of all the emergency preparation right now for hurricane for the city. So I've been really busy these last couple of days.
Yeah,
With all
yeah,
the,
we got Elsa
Elsa, yeah.
that's
So
making her way through over here.
yeah, so I've been kind of tied up with that, and keeping updates and communicating with the team or whatever. So it's different than what I've been doing. I'm not a politics type of person. I'm very the type of person that likes to speak my mind, no matter if it goes against the rules or ruffles a couple feathers. So I've kind of had to like tone down my personality a little bit to kind of, fit the mold, so to
Right,
speak.
right.
Not really thrilled about that. So, but for right now, it's okay. I'm keeping my options open
Yeah.
for, different opportunities in the future.
Okay. Oh, again, thank you for sharing. And let me just ask you one more question, just because I know a lot of our devotee listeners would love to hear. Um, from your experience being around the devotees and being married to someone who's part of the movement, how would you define Krishna consciousness the way you understand it?
Um, it's different. Um, and it's different depending on people I talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are more in my generation, um, they have a maybe a different outlook about Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not at the forefront of their life, their everyday life of how they live and what they do, but it's a foundation, so to speak. And
Right.
I think when I talk to the elders, it is the forefront of what guides and shapes their life.
Mm.
So that comparison of, yes, this is my foundation. This is what I revert back to when I need guidance, when I need support, when I need a sound ear to listen.
Right.
Um, that's what I get from the younger generation. And then for the older generation, I get that this is the end all be all. This is how my life is guided through, the words of Krishna consciousness. So
Yeah.
it's two different perspectives. And it's very unique. It's very, I've learned a lot. She's taken me to some places that I know that I would have never ever been to, West Virginia, parts of Mississippi, and to see how those people live and how they all pull together to help and support each other to make sure that everybody has a little bit and does not go without. I think that
Yeah.
is very, very, fulfilling and telling and welcoming to people that are looking for something to attach onto, or looking for a purpose or something that gives them comfort. So I
Mm.
think that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting that what struck for you is this these two perspectives from the older and younger generations. And you know, as my dad put it once years ago, in a way, Krishna consciousness in the West is still very much a big experiment because it's so new in the
Yep.
Western world. And so, these first 3 generations are really going through these initial motions of this ancient tradition being introduced in the West. And the first generation was establishing temples with Srila Prabhupada, and second generation is maybe a little bit lost between that and trying to live a career and family life. And even Prabhupada said that the third generation would be the one that was going to be the most well established.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's very, you can see that. You can see that, as you said, it's something you can observe in talking to different generations. But overall, I mean, I find the whole thing fascinating, and it's a beautiful adventure to be a part of.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So thank you again so much for sharing your experiences and a little bit about your story together.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Scotty. Let's see. Just going through my my notes here. Would you say, Param, that you made this big decision, both of you moved here? Describe, you've been here 4 years now. Looking back and where you stand now in the community and your careers together and your family life, was it a good decision? Are you happy to be here? What's the New Raman Reti experience for you guys?
I am very happy to be here. I know that Scotty, it was tough at first, but I know it was it's been a really great decision for myself, for my daughter, for my mom. It brings us more peace to our lives. We're able to spend a lot of time together. We're able to do things together, and that overall, I think for our physical, mental, spiritual health has just been amazing. I do. With Raman Reti in particular, sometimes it's a little bit hard to make those super close connections because it's such a large community.
Right.
That sometimes it feels a little bit isolating, I want to say, because there's so many people that I feel like it's hard to have like that one-on-one connection with those people. But I really feel like as the years have gone by, I really established a tribe of people that really get me and want the best for me. So I think that that's kind of I know from a lot of people, they say that's like a little like isolating here because there are so many people, but I think it takes time and cultivation to have those relationships and not to feel so isolated.
Yeah. It's a recurrent theme here. Even before I moved here, I was hearing about it can be hard to integrate into such a large community, and I appreciate that you pointed out that you kind of found your little tribe, and I really encourage all the community members who, and not only the community members, but organizers, anybody with an organizational tendency to form small groups. You can connect on so many different things, whether it's, reading or men's and women's groups or a sports group. And that's really the key, I think, in such a large community.
Yeah.
That connects is to just form some small groups.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I know it's needed. It's happening in many ways. I know of a lot of groups, but the more we can make those, the better.
And I think it's also nice because you get to experience different things from people that are similar to you, but also are completely different. And you would never, like people that are super devoted and deep into Krishna consciousness, whereas the people that are kind of maybe just getting started in their movement or just kind of figuring out their relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, to connect on those levels.
Yeah.
I know I've often thought to myself that, devotee association is super important, but it's got to be the proper devotee association for you. And that's a very individual thing to identify who you fit in with and connect with on that level.
Yeah.
Well, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I was part of Shamali's memorial. How long has it been now? A year?
Almost a year.
Yeah.
Next month will be a year.
Mm-hmm. Our dear Shamali passed away from cancer a year ago, and she was really loved so
Mhm.
much by the community, and I remember very much your offering during the memorial, and you two were very, very close.
Mhm.
um, and I was just curious, if you could share a little bit about your relationship with her,
Sure.
because she's really been admired in
Yeah.
this community to be like a way advanced devotee for her age,
100%. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to dive into that a little bit, and was she kind of like, did she play a role somehow for you in your life and all that?
I've known Shamali since I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up together. We walked to school together every day. So losing her, if being totally honest, was very hard for me, and it is still very hard for me.
Yeah.
It made me question my faith. It made me question so many things, because she is, like I said, like, she was perfect. And not even like, oh, she's perfect, but like literally like kind, sweet, smart, loving, funny.
Yeah.
And she never made you feel a certain way. She chanted her rounds, she read the books, but she never judged me for not being on that level yet.
Right.
So I think that that's such an important and rare thing to find,
Mhm.
where it was like genuine, judgment free, and just met you where you were
Right.
and loved you for where you were, and never pushed you to be anything that you didn't want to do. Now, if you told her something that she didn't like, oh, she would be the first one to tell you.
Right.
I think Shamli, it's different, the relationship that I have with her. So a lot of people were like, no, she was so kind and sweet, but she was very kind and sweet. But if she told you something, you better, because she was a teacher. So,
Right.
we
Right.
were all kind of afraid of her,
Yeah.
So I feel like she just, anytime I ever have made any serious lifetime decisions, she was one of the people that I called
Mm-hmm.
in every situation, as school or relationships or life or everyday things. She was my soundboard, just always level-headed. She would get angry, but she was never disrespectful or mean, or she always had great advice.
Yeah.
And it it took us, everybody that she's ever come in contact with just realized how amazing she was. um it's hard every day, because sometimes I'll be discussing something with somebody at work, and they'll be like, that's not how you say it, and I'm like, no, it is. And they'll be like, no, and I'm like, I'm gonna call my friend up because she's a teacher. And then I realize that I can't call her. So that hits hard,
Yeah.
when like, so it's been a definitely challenging road. But I just feel so fortunate that I've had her in my life for so long.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been friends with her. I've known her more than I've not known her.
Right.
And so it's she was a big part of my wedding. I was a part of her wedding. It's just been a blessing. She's she taught Shivani in school. It's she's an amazing person.
Mm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
know you two really had a very special, intimate
Yeah.
relationship, and yeah, I was just curious to know a little
Yeah.
bit more about our dear
Shamali.
Shamali.
Yeah. And I know her as Gora. So, and it was when she got initiated, she was like, no, you can't call me Gora anymore. And I'm like, but that's,
Oh, really?
yeah. And I was like,
never
but
even knew that.
yeah, she was like, no, I'm not going by Gora anymore. And I'm like, no, your name is Gora. And I remember she would ignore you if you called her Gora. She would
Oh, wow.
only respond to Shamali. So she was dedicated.
Yeah. I think that's what it is,
Yeah.
She really, dedication is such a great way to describe her. That's kind of
Yeah.
what came off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Param, thank you so much.
Of course.
This was really wonderful to get to hear about your life journey, your background growing up in Krishna Consciousness.
Yes.
Your parents were,
Yeah.
I'm sure they would be an awesome interview themselves, from what I hear.
Yes.
And I really appreciate the way you approach your career, your dedication for that, and you're very much a people person, and you sincerely want to help.
Yeah.
It was great to hear from Scotty and
Yeah.
your story together moving here to New Raman Reti. I found this actually really interesting because it wasn't the typical interviews that we've done so far where there was really a very defined, like, oh, this is the service that this person does in Krishna consciousness. And, you know, it's just easy to, to get into that. But I feel like I got a lot of kind of insight on how a lot of devotees live their Krishna consciousness when it's not, you know, full on like I'm doing my sadhana and I'm wearing a sari and all that. But like you said, this is who you are. You know, you consider yourself.
And I think we're all different. And I think that you know we want to be this, or we think we need to be this certain type of person to get, you know, where we are spiritually, or our neighbors are. But I think it's a personal journey, honestly. And I think if anything I've taken from my parents, from my peers, and even from my husband, it's just it's inside of you, and you nurture and you cultivate it whatever way it heals your soul, you know. And Krishna speaks to every single one of us, whether it's Krishna or Allah or Buddha, you know, like our goal is to be amazing people and to care for one another. And I think that that's my relation, and that's like the biggest thing I take away from my spirituality and my Krishna consciousness.
Beautiful. All right, well, I think that's a beautiful place to end.
Yes.
Thank you again so much, Param.
Thank you so much.
It was wonderful to get to know you, and
Thank you.
We'll see you around.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.